What's up, YouTube? This is Calvin Bond from Bond Trucking, coming to y'all with another video. On this video, I am at the shop. So I came to the shop to get a DOT inspection and to get a PM done. So on my DOT inspection, they found that I needed some new brakes and rotors. So I said that I was gonna try to get, I had already got the DOT, let me show you. I already got the brakes on this side, if you can see them, and the new rotors on this side. So as I was getting my DOT inspection, I had already did the PM. So I ended up going over on my escrow. I didn't have any more escrow money, so now I am fighting to try to get the rest of my stuff done on my now I'm fighting to get the rest of my stuff done on my truck. I had $1,500 after the last incident, so this ends up being $2,200. So now I'm trying to work with them to pay the difference. Right now, I told them to take the new rotors off right here. So they took the new rotors off on this side and sent Tail a bill so I can get as close as I can to the $1,500, and then I'm gonna pay everything else out of pocket. I am at Knoxville. Yeah, I don't think y'all can see that. I am at Knoxville, TA, in Knoxville, Tennessee. I give y'all an update on what they say and what happens. So I went in to get my DOT inspection, and I went on and got a PM done because I wanted to go on and get everything done since I'm already at the shop. So when I come out, I ain't got to worry about nothing but go home, do some home time, come out and make some money. So I get there, they do the DOT inspection, they do my PM, but I failed the DOT inspection. They said I needed brakes. I knew I needed brakes, but I didn't know I needed brakes and drums. But the last time I went to the shop, they told me I had about maybe 6 months left on my brakes. So I did my DOT inspection in like 5. They did look a little low, but it looked like they was alright at that moment. The inside of my brakes was lower than the outside of my brakes. You know, in drums, you only can see one side as you look over the drum. So I was like, okay, so I need to get the brakes and rollers on both drive axles. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So they did everything that they needed to do with the PM, and they gave me a quote or estimate on everything that needed to be done on my truck. That was the brakes and rotors. But when they did the estimate, they did the estimate with brakes and rotors on one side of my drives. Both axles, but just the right side of both axles. So they gave me a quote of $2,200. So I'm like, man. So I tried to use my escrow. After my last incident, I only had about, hold on. after my last incident, I only had $1,500 in my escrow. So I was trying to get TEL to pay for as much as they can, and I will pay the difference. But TEL act like they didn't want to pay for nothing. But they didn't tell me they didn't want to pay for nothing. They just kept stringing me along. So I ended up sitting there to Thursday evening about 5 o'clock. So they finally started talking to me. Now I done been here 24 hours. I done been at the shop 24 hours, waiting on them to do whatever they're gonna do. So they finally called me and told me, oh, the estimate is too high, you don't have enough in your escrow. So I was like, so what can y'all work with me with? And they was like, well, we can work with you with the 15. And I was like, well, I need y'all to work with me with more than that, because I done been in the hole in my escrow before, and I'm trying to spend the least amount of money out of my personal account that I can. So we ended up working together and getting the estimate down to $1,800. So we got the estimate down to $1,800, and TEL waited until they got ready to leave before they approved the $1,800. Because at first they wasn't approving nothing, not even the $1,500 I had in there. So I finally got them to approve it. So after they approved it, we took off the drums on this side and left the brakes. Now, you know, drums cost money, like $300-400 a piece. So I ended up spending, I paid the difference of the $2,200. So after I paid the difference, I ended up getting out of there late that night. It was Thursday night. So I was like, well, I got about 300 miles to drive, so I'll just drive that in the morning, because I'm just going home, and I'll come back out Monday or Tuesday, stay home a couple of days, you know. So the next morning I got ready to pull out, and my brakes was grabbing real bad. Like it was trying to, every time I get off the gas, it would try to pull me down, try to slow me down. So I'm like, man, I don't know what's going on. So I'm thinking like, maybe, I felt that it was in the front. It was on my steers. So I knew it wasn't nothing that they did, because they only did the 2 drive axles in the back. So I know it's nothing that they did. And it was pulling to the side. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna try to find a TA or somewhere that I can get an alignment closer to Nashville, because I live closer to Nashville. So I pulls over and I call all the TAs in Nashville and every place that I could find that can do an alignment. Nobody could do an alignment around Nashville. So I had to call the other side of Knoxville, and they said that their alignment bracket is working, but they can't print me a printout, but I can take a picture of the computer, you know, to have it like a printout. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I turn around and goes back to Knoxville to get the alignment. So after I go back to Knoxville and get the alignment, I sat at the TA for 5 more hours. They finally got me in the shop, and they realized that you don't need an alignment, you needed a slack adjuster on the driver's side. And I was like, when I checked the slack adjuster, it felt fine. And they was like, no, I'm gonna show you. So they showed it to me. They turned the wheel, and the wheel wouldn't freely turn, but the passenger side wheel would freely turn. So now I need a slack adjuster. TA called everywhere in Knoxville, all the dealerships, everything. They were trying to cross numbers. Nobody had this slack adjuster for my truck. So I ended up calling Nilly Coble while they was calling, and told me they couldn't find one. I called Nilly Coble in Nashville, and they had one. So I talked to them, and I was like, well, how can we get it? And they was like, well, we can back your brake, that brake off, but don't do any excessive braking, because the more you brake, the tighter the brakes get back on the disc, on the rotor. So I'm like, okay, cool. So they backed it off. I drove all the way to Nashville. when I got to Nashville, it was pulling again. It was pulling. It wasn't real bad. At least it didn't feel like it was real bad. But it was real bad. It was worse than I thought it was. So I went to Nilly Coble. And when I got to Nilly Coble, they said, yeah, we got the part. I was like, well, when can y'all put it on? They was like, oh, but now today is Friday. It was on a Friday. They said, well, we can look at it maybe Monday or Tuesday, hopefully. And I was like, nah, I can't sit there that long. So I called TA. First I asked him, was it under warranty? It wasn't under warranty, so I could go to a TA to get it fixed. So I called the TA, and the TA was like, yeah, if you buy the part if you bring us the part, we can put it on. So I was already at Nilly Coble. So I went on and bought the part, and then I drove to Franklin, Tennessee to the TA and got the part put on. When I got the part put on, I noticed that the inside of my tire had been worn because of the situation of going from Knoxville to there. It was a little worn when I was in Knoxville, but it was really worn when I finally got to Franklin, Tennessee. So when I got to Franklin, Tennessee, they put it on. I seen it. And I drove about 10 miles to the Lowe's. And I parked. And I got my family to pick me up. So I called JB Hunt. And JB Hunt have a Goodyear account. And the way it's set up is you go through JB Hunt to get your tire, and JB Hunt will give you their discount on the tire, but then they'll take the money out of your settlement. So I was like, okay, I can do that. That's a good deal, because then I can get the tire for cheaper. So I got the tire put on, and that's it. After I did all that, I passed the DOT inspection, and now I'm getting loaded. I'm out.